Listen to this comment, though, from John Kerry. He says, it's so nice to put faces to the metadata. Now, people laughed. I'm sorry, but if I was there, I couldn't laugh about that. We'll know that we're getting somewhere when people are no longer able to laugh about that kind of surveillance. They simply get angry. Maybe they groan or maybe they hiss or whatever. But they should not be laughing about that. And here's the example that we were talking about just before the break. At CPAC, we had a journalist, Dan Dix, Press for Truth, a small alternative media. He's known, but he's not known like he would be recognized like somebody that's on Fox News, for example, by face. He is in a very long line of people to get in a book signing with Newt Gingrich so he can get face-to-face and ask him a question because, of course, Newt Gingrich isn't going to give him an interview, okay, because that's the way they use access to control the media. They control the mainstream media through access. So he's in the line. He's quite a bit further back, and they have all of a sudden a bunch of security officers descend on him and say, we think you're a threat. We want to see what you're carrying. Make him empty all of his pockets. They see that he has no threat, and then they escort him out of CPAC and will not say anything to him, just take him out of there. Now, my question when I look at this is, how did they recognize Dan in that sea of people? Did they look at everybody that had bought a CPAC ticket and go down and say, here's a journalist. Here's a journalist that's going to ask us questions that we might not be familiar with. Let's keep an eye on him. Do they have facial recognition? You know, what's this metadata that they're putting faces to, as John Kerry says?
Well, I think there's no question they're screening people. Yeah. And it comes down to the fact that they've lost the information battle, and they can no longer stand the assault of reality that's coming to them when journalists
go up and ask them questions. They just want to censor it.
So that's when you know we've really won. And it also, at the same time, though, gets really scary because it means they're willing to do anything in case of defending their empire. So when they cannot even argue anymore, they don't even want to have interviews. They don't even want to talk to anyone. They don't even want to put up with it. They just have you arrested now immediately if you try to even go up to someone.
Isn't it interesting that Newt Gingrich is supposedly one of the most articulate people in the Republican Party? He doesn't feel like he can take on an alternative journalist. He's got to have him thrown out of the event.
And, you know, it might not even be specifically him. It might be the event people going and saying, oh, an alternative journalist.
Yes.
Wow, we need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
You know, it might be the CPAC employees going around, because just like the TSA, you know, it's the TSA agents sometimes themselves that are on these immense power trips that are completely absurd and insane and molesting people.
Still, somehow they had to know who he was. They had to be able to recognize his face or had to single him out in some way out of the crowd. That's what I find troubling. I want to take your calls on CPAC and some of these other issues, South by Southwest, that we're talking about. Let me give you the number for Sunday. It's 877-789-ALEX. That's 877-789-2539. If you want to call in and weigh in on what you think happened with CPAC this last week. Now, of course, they had a poll at the end, and Rand Paul won that pretty handily. And the number 2 was Ted Cruz, but it was a little bit closer on Drudge, wasn't it?
Well, I'm more interested in the Drudge poll. That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
And if we have that on screen, when I checked it just shortly ago, Rand Paul was dominating. Ted Cruz was close behind, but overall, it seems like the whole pulse of the real conservative nation right now is Ted Cruz and Rand Paul.
Yes, they were neck and neck at about 30% last I saw it. Everybody else was about 4, 5, 6%.
Well, think about what that signifies, though. It's not Newt Gingrich. It's not Jeb Bush. You know, it's not Rick Perry. It's Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. You think about that. In 2014, we're at a point now they would be considered, they are considered alternative conspiracy theorists by many people. And here they are, you know, dominating these polls with hundreds of thousands of people voting. I mean, the Drudge poll is more legitimate than the CPAC.
Yes. Can you imagine Jeb Bush saying we need to abolish the IRS, no matter how corrupt they are, no matter how they are using the IRS against political enemies, and continue to do it after it's exposed? That's the most amazing thing. I believe all presidents have been doing this with the IRS. And, of course, they're controlling all of our behavior through the income tax code, right? But when they get caught doing this, instead of being impeached, they just continue to do it. And the IRS commissioner takes the fifth twice, even though we can't take the fifth on anything with the IRS tax forms. It's an outrage, but the only ones to speak to these types of things are Ted Cruz and Rand Paul. That's why you see them leading in the opinion polls on Drudge, where it really matters.
What does that signify to you?
I think we're, like you said, I think we're winning. And I think they're really getting desperate. And I think the old school Republican leadership, the old country club leadership that's represented by people like Jeb Bush and by Newt Gingrich, I think they're very much afraid of this. You've got McCain, who's out there saying that that Ted Cruz needs to apologize, that he crossed the line, because what Ted Cruz said was that McCain and Dole and these other guys, they're all good men, he said. They're decent men, but they don't stand and draw a clear distinction. They don't stand for principle. And so Democrats celebrate that. That's what he's saying. They don't stand for anything except the same things that the Democrats stand for, which is greater government control of your life.
Well, you know, I've never been left or right, and this has always been the case. We all know about the left-right paradigm and everything, how it's, you know, many of the same sides. But it really does seem like the conservative Republican movement is going on the right side with this. They're all culminating together to the right principles and standing behind Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, who aren't perfect, as no one is.
That's right. That's right.
But it really does seem to be a quantum phase shift to the conservative movement going ahead. And the left, I mean, it's not even really called the conservative movement anymore to me. It's almost like the third party of reality is bolstering. And it seems like Drudge is just so on target with everything that it's, you know, all third party reality. And that many of the conservatives now realize that people like Jeb Bush and all of those other losers are not real conservatives.
That's
and
right.
from the beginning, real conservatism has been what is now considered, you know, truth, alternative news, just all of the things that we stand for. And same with the left. The real left people would stand for this too. So it's almost like you see the Democratic Party degenerating at such a fast pace as you see the right kind of phase shifting, realizing that all the viewers, all the attention, all the everything is on this new reality third party.
I think people are starting to understand that you have to have freedom in all these different areas. It makes a difference if you have privacy. It makes a difference if you can defend yourself. It makes a difference if you don't get the government involved in every war. And yet we see that's the same stuff that McCain is still offering people.
I mean, at the very least, it's maybe like some of these real conservatives don't want to destroy the country. They just want to have crony capitalism or something and make a lot of money. And you know, a lot of people have some guns. But the left, it seems like they literally just want to destroy the cities, just want to completely have crime go rampant. They just want to have mass abortions, and they just want to just completely destroy everything until it degrades to zero. And I am definitely not a Republican. I'm definitely not a Democrat. You know, I'm looking at this from the side of common sense, from reality, statistics, and facts. And it does look like the left overall, the ultra left, does want to completely take everything down with them and raise the tax to 100%.
Symbols are powerful, and the globalists have hijacked the symbols of America. They've turned them into their own symbols. Well, we are restoring the idea of the true republic, not the counterfeit globalist empire, by promoting the icon George Washington and others. That's why we're rolling out an 100% made in America line of incredible pro-liberty apparel. We are repopularizing liberty. We are helping fellow Americans rediscover what made this country great. We are the spirit of 1776. We are 1776 worldwide. We are all brothers and sisters in arms in the animating contest of liberty in the long march towards humanity's ultimate destiny of freedom. Visit madein1776.com today and vote with your dollars to promote truly made in America, high-quality products, and promote the ideals of liberty.
It's not Syria anymore or Libya. It's now Russia that they want to engage. McCain said, I'd love to tell you that there is an option about U.S. attacking Russia, Andrea, but frankly, I do not see it. I wish that there were. I don't see a military option, and it's tragic. He thinks it's tragic that we don't have a way that we can start a hot war with Russia. Of course, we are trying to start the Cold War again. That's going to help his military-industrial complex buddies, isn't it?
It's really, really tragic that we cannot start a nuclear holocaust via World War III. That just makes a tear come to my eye.
He's like Dr. Strangelove.
Exactly. You know what else is really tragic? That they're pushing this over on the American people, who 90% of the people that I've, at least from my understanding of this, based on all the user feedback, all the comments, all the social media response, are people that have just gone online and seen pictures of protesters from the Ukraine and heard that, oh, they're hurting the protesters. Russia, they think that Russia is shooting them with sniper rifles when it was all U.S.-backed CIA takeover. But they think that Russia is the one attacking the protesters. and they think that Russia is invading them after attacking the protesters. That's how totally ignorant they are of this whole subject. And that's why they're able to go ahead and come on television and say, yes, we need to attack Russia. We need to start World War III over these protesters. And everyone, it just reminds me of the Occupy movement. It's like every single time there's a protest, the protesters are immediately perfect. Like the American people love a good protest. So if it's in another country, they don't even listen to the politics.
Well, not always. They didn't like the Tea Party protest.
Well,
That's probably the biggest protest I've seen in my lifetime, and they were demonized for it. Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But if it's in the Ukraine, then the protesters are great no matter what, and it's, you know, evil.
Well, you know, the wisdom of the Founding Fathers was that we don't involve ourselves in foreign intrigue. You know, there's a lot of very complicated stuff going on there. We've got snipers that are shooting at both sides of the protesters and the police. Who's behind those snipers? Well, we can argue about that. We can argue about why are these NGO organizations like John McCain's International Republican Institute, why are they sending tons of money to the Ukraine? We can argue about that. Let's not get involved in that.
I don't even want to get into the Ukraine scenario. I'm just saying, because it's such an intense geopolitical situation, there's no good sides. But the only thing that would be good is to actually kind of know what's going on instead of having all this insane propaganda going out there to push World War III to the citizens that unfortunately have no idea what's even happening.
Exactly. The insane thing would be not get involved in this very complicated foreign intrigue. That was the foreign policy that served us very well. That was the wisdom of the Founding Fathers who advised us against that, to not go abroad seeking monsters to destroy and get involved in their perpetual wars in Europe. We should do that, and we should not start World War III. Let's go to a call here. We've got JT in Colorado. JT, you wanted to talk about sanctions in the Ukraine?
Hey, David.
Hey.
And Anthony, good talking with both of you. Yeah, the curious thing when Obama decided that he was going to sanction Russia for, you know, them going in and protecting their time-honored, long-time bases, that the first thing Putin did was say that he would stop importation of ammunition from the Soviet Union, 7.62-39 and 7.62-54 ammo. Well, who does that help, David?
Exactly.
I think that helps Obama.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a very complicated situation, isn't it? Hopefully we can get somebody in who is going to make the case, as we see. I think it's part of the popularity of Rand Paul, is that he's making the case that we don't need to get involved and intervene in every single foreign war, and it gets piled intrigue on top of intrigue, and certainly that's going to be something that's going to affect us directly. There's also the pushback against the dollar. There's the trade war that's going to erupt out of this. There's many, many, many dimensions, and every single war, whether it's a trade war, whether it's a Cold War, whether it's a shooting war, who gets stronger? The governments do. The American government will get stronger from this. The Russians will get stronger from this. Every time there's a conflict like that, they use it. It is the lifeblood of the state, isn't it, Anthony?
Well, yeah, I think the secret is why Rand Paul is gaining so much success, why Ted Cruz is gaining so much success, is they're simple. They'll lay it on the line. And not everyone's perfect, I understand that. But in many ways, they'll lay it out on the line. Yes, I'm against the Federal Reserve. You know, yes, I'm against starting World War III with Russia. It's these simple little things any common sense person would be against.
Yes.
But it's like there's no political figure that's willing to go out and say that, because it's all bought and paid for. They're all part of the establishment, so they won't do it. But it's like these key ones that go out and actually say what we want. You know, and
people are tired of being manipulated into all of these conflicts. And we understand how they've been trying to, exactly, they understand how we've been manipulated and trying to get us involved in Syria and other places. Thank you, JT in Colorado. Let's go to Julio in Illinois. You wanted to talk about CPAC and GMOs?
Yes, good afternoon. Hope you guys had a great weekend. You know, Anthony Gutierrez, I'm a big fan of your work, and I did a documentary for the InfoWar contest titled Genetically Modified Society. I'm trying to...
You know what? That's a great film. I've seen that.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate it. I'd like to interview you. I'm trying to finish that documentary and would like to interview you. Don't know of a way to do it.
Well, just send us over an email. Send me a message on Facebook. But did you want to talk about GMOs and CPAC?
Yeah, my comment on CPAC, you know, I was watching it throughout the weekend, and David, you brought up the question on Friday during your show, and I was watching can conservatives and libertarians coexist? I was watching that part of CPAC, and Michael Medved, boy, this neocon, he really loves to try to keep the two-party system, and he basically said in his entire speech that the only way libertarians can have any effect is if they join the Republican Party. I thought it was laughable. So they're trying to tame any third-party presence. And if you saw from the CPAC straw poll with Rand Paul winning, one of the biggest surprises I saw was Dr. Ben Carson. This man's not even talked about in terms of the corporate establishment media as someone who's a contender. I personally don't think he's a contender, but to see that man, a black man, actually talk about real conservative issues, I thought that was interesting. He finished in third place. And then finally, I was watching Meet the Corporate Press today on the national propaganda channel NBC, and David Gregory tried to blow off Rand Paul's victory at CPAC, telling Congressman Peter King, oh, you know, the winner of the CPAC really doesn't matter anymore, but Rand Paul won, and Peter King is trying to say that Rand Paul is, his target audience is like the lowest grade of individuals in the Republican Party, meaning those who are libertarian-minded. And that just goes to show you who these people really are, these neocons, these, you know, the Peter Kings.
Well, they're like peacocks. They pretend they're all huge and walk around and act like they're great and intelligent, but in reality, they have no followers or listeners. And that's why Drudge Report, the poll on there, Rand Paul's dominating as well with Ted Cruz, the real conservatives that are actually going to go out and change things.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Watch live at Infowars.com/show or become a member of InfoWarsNews.com and help us take resistance to the next level.